Welcome to the Auditor Estate Uniform Accounting Network screencast for adding a new employee in UAN. In this screencast, we will cover our new employee checklist and provide procedures for adding new employees in UAN using the Add Employee wizard. Our first step is to complete the new employee checklist. So before proceeding to the Add Employee screen in UAN, we'll complete the new employee checklist. The checklist is a set of procedures designed to ensure that all pertinent information needed for the entry of the new employee in UAN is addressed so the employee can be entered in the UAN software correctly. I'll show you our new employee checklist. You'll need the following data to complete the Add Employee wizard. Once all items are documented on the checklist, you can begin the Add Employee wizard. So for the name, you'll need a first, middle, last, suffix, and the employee ID you have chosen. You also need a street and mailing address, including city, state, and zip. Home phone, cell phone, email, and emergency contact telephone number, and contact name. These are all optional pieces of information. The Social Security number. You must enter the Social Security number correctly. This number will be used on the OPRS and OPNFPF and also W-2 forms. The date of hire. This could be the date the person is sworn into office or actually starts work. Sometimes the two dates are different because you could be sworn into office in March but take office April 1st. If the pay raises are effective on the employee's anniversary date, then select the date that will be considered the anniversary according to your policies. Entering the birth date is optional. If you enter it, the date will appear on some of the reports. You want to choose male or female. And then the status. The software defaults to select full-time. If your employee isn't full-time, click to change the selection to part-time. This choice will impact your quarterly ODJFS report. If full-time is marked, the software will populate the ODJFS report with 13 weeks of credit and all 3 months checked. If part-time is selected, you will have to manually enter the weeks worked and check the months worked on the quarterly ODJFS report. Elected officials don't appear on the ODJFS report, so you can select what you like for them. Track hours by. The software sets the default choice to pay period. By day is a future enhancement for the quarterly ODJFS report, where daily hours can be entered at the wage record level for your part-time employees. In the future, the report will automatically populate the weeks and months worked fields from the posted payroll data. At the time the manual was written and at the time of this screencast, the enhancement wasn't completed. Your instructors will advise you if this will be available for your use. Do not select day if the enhancement isn't ready. Your tax exemptions. You'll need the W-4 federal and IT-4 state forms to complete this area. New employees should be given these forms to complete and return before the first paycheck can be issued. Blank IRS W-4 forms can be printed from the IRS website. Blank state IT-4 forms can be found at the Ohio Tax website. If your employee includes an additional supplemental amount to withhold for state or federal, you will make a note to enter that as a withholding. You also need to know the marital status of your employee if they're married or single. This affects their taxes as well. The OPRS member date. This date is required for all OPRS members in order to post a payroll. Contact OPRS if you are not sure what to use as the member date. If you skip this box during setup, then you will be stopped when trying to generate a paycheck until the date is entered. As you can see, this is an OPRS employee, so we will need an OPRS member date. OPNFPF member date. If you have employees that pay into OPNFPF, this date is required to post a payroll. Contact OPNFPF if you're not sure what to use as the member date. If you skip this box during setup, then you will be stopped when trying to generate a paycheck until the date is entered. In our example, he's not OPNFPF, so we don't have that provided in our new employee checklist in our example. Also, if your employee is OPNFPF, you'll need an hours base. If you have employees that pay into OPNF, this hours base number is necessary because it defaults into the OPNFPF monthly report. If you're unsure what the base hours should be, contact OP&FPF. Next, we'll review the withholdings the employee will need and verify they are set up in the software. Once a withholding is set up, it will be able to attach to the employees. Review the list of withholdings and payroll maintenance withholdings and determine what you should have available prior to beginning the wizard. UAN cannot advise what taxes an employee should have withheld. So our employee Barry is going to have Medicare, OPERS. He also has a supplemental federal. He's got a health insurance deduction. And it looks like that's it for his withholdings. If you have municipal and school income taxes, each municipal and school district income tax your employees need must be available in the software. It is recommended you verify all employees' addresses for municipal and school district taxes on the ohio.gov website. At the website, you can enter the employee's address for municipal tax and school tax. You can print the results and put it in the employee's personnel file with the W-4 and IT-4 forms to show why you're withholding these taxes. You must understand the different rules for local taxes regarding credit for workplace taxes and apply these rules and credits in your setup. Also, you may have an employer share of Medicare, OPERS, OP&FPF, and Social Security. When considering withholdings, you need to know what appropriation accounts will pay the employer's share of the Medicare and retirement. Determine if the employer's share will be paid from one appropriation account, divided by a percentage or allocated by the object code. Make sure the appropriation accounts are set up and have an unencumbered balance. If your entity has a fringe benefit or salary reduction for Medicare, Social Security, OPERS, or OP&FPF, you need to review your agreements and legislation before you begin. If you're in any doubt as to what agreement you have with OPERS and/or OP&FPF, you will need to contact them. Also, you want to consider the employee's share of health, life, dental, or vision insurance. Your entity determines the portion each employee will pay for the benefits that are available to them. A withholding will be set up so the employee's share will come out of their paychecks. If the employee has chosen to have an extra amount withheld for state or federal taxes, you add these as withholdings. The W-4 and IT-4 forms have a space for them to indicate the extra dollar amount to be withheld per paycheck, not a percentage or fluctuating amount. The software will allow you to add supplemental state tax and supplemental federal tax as a withholding. Using these defaults is essential for the supplemental amounts to pull into the correct reports and withholding payments. Remember, state and federal income taxes are already attached to the employee when you enter the wizard. You need to add all other withholdings. Next, review earnings considerations. Decide whether the employee is unemployment eligible. A person who fills an elected position, such as a trustee, township fiscal officer, or clerk treasurer, should be marked elected, so the unemployment eligible box is not marked. This section indicates whether pay is going to report on the quarterly ODJFS report. Although some elected officials are appointed to fill an unexpired term, they should still be marked as elected for this classification. The choice appointed is meant for positions such as administrator or village fiscal officer. These people are appointed and sworn into office, but their pay is unemployment eligible, unlike an elected official. If you're in doubt, always contact the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services to determine if earnings are unemployment eligible before you set them up in the software. Next, review earning types, frequencies, and pay rates. Earnings must be set up in payroll, maintenance, earnings, and leave. The software will allow you to add multiple earnings of the same type, but the descriptions must be edited so they are unique. Also, you need to know how often the earning will be paid, which is the frequency. Annual, semi-annual, monthly, semi-monthly, bi-weekly, and weekly are typical frequencies. It's important to set this up correctly so the taxes are withheld at the correct date. Then you need to know the amount a person will receive per hour, per pay, or per item. There should be legislative action setting the rates of pay of the employees. The rate of pay of elected officials will either be governed by legislative action, or in the case of townships, by state law. Use these documents to determine what rates to enter on the earning. Next, review overtime earnings, if the employee is eligible for overtime. Your policies will dictate the rates and overtimes that need to be set up for employees. For example, legislative overtime rates could be time and a half or double time. Next, review non-cash benefits if the employee is eligible for non-cash benefits. A non-cash benefit is an item the entity pays for that the IRS deems a taxable fringe benefit. The employee doesn't receive any pay for the item, but they are taxed for the financial benefit. If the value of the non-cash benefit never fluctuates, then you can enter the amount and it will default to the wage each pay period. Otherwise, leave it at zero and enter the amount on each wage each pay to avoid accidentally taxing the employee based on an incorrect amount. Next, review the leave options if the employee is eligible for leave earnings. The leave accrual type and rates will be completed pursuant to your local legislation and policies. Leaves need to be set up in the software in payroll, maintenance, earnings, and leave. Once you have collected all of the pertinent employee information, you may proceed in adding the employee in UAN. To navigate to the Add Employee area, select the Payroll module, the Maintenance menu option, and the Employees function. The Employees listing will open to the right, listing all active employees in UAN. The actions available in this area are Add Employee, Edit, Activate, Deactivate, Remove, and Display. The Close button closes the Employees area. To begin from the Employees area, click the Add Employee button. The Add Employee Wizard welcome screen will open, displaying 6 steps and 3 buttons. They are the Add Employee Information step, the Add Employee Withholding step, the Add Employee Earnings step, the Add Employee Overtime step, the Add Employee Non-Cash Benefits step, the Add Employee Leave step, the Back button, the Next button, and the Quit button. Please note the instructions provided at the top of the Add Employee Wizard welcome screen. To skip any of the optional steps, click the Next button until the progress screen below appears again. After completing or skipping any step, you can never revisit that step within this Employee Wizard. If you skip a step or close the wizard, the new employee can be edited in Payroll, Maintenance, Employees. If at any time you need to quit, the items you have added so far will be saved. To begin, click the Next button below. If you click the Quit button before completing the Add Employee Wizard, UAN will display a system message that asks, "Are you sure you want to quit the Add Employee Wizard? The employee you are currently entering will be discarded." If you say OK and quit the Employee Wizard, the employee will be saved with the information you have entered up to that point. The employee can then be subsequently edited at any time in Payroll, Maintenance, Employees, Edit. If you quit before completing Step 1, which is Add Employee Information, then the employee will be discarded. Otherwise, hit the Cancel button to continue working. We're going to hit Cancel, and I'm going to click Next to begin adding the employee. When you click Next, the Add Employee Information form will open, displaying 8 sections and 3 buttons. They are the Employee section, the Pay Status section, the Address section, the Phone section, the Other section, the State Retirement section, the Tax Exemption section, the Electronic Funds Transfer section, the Back button, the Next button, and the Quit button. Please note the instructions provided at the top of the Add Employee Information screen. So in Step 1, to add employee information, we're going to enter the new employee's information below. Employee ID is permanent for the employee. Enter it carefully. Be sure to fill out the state retirement information if this employee contributes to OPERS or OP and FPF. Setting track hours by today will require you to enter this employee's daily hours when posting wages. When you're finished, click the Next button below. As usual on this screen, required fields are in green, optional fields are white, and read-only fields are the same color as the background. Our first section to complete is the employee section. We need a first name, a middle initial, a last name, and an employee ID for our employee. You can find this information on your Add Employee checklist that we worked on earlier. You'll obviously have the Add Employee checklist in front of you. I'm just going to open it up here on the screen so we can cross-reference back and forth. I'll be doing that throughout the screencast. So we'll go to our Add Employee checklist. As you can see, our employee name is Barry N. Dead, and our employee ID is B. Dead. I bet you can't guess which department that Barry works in. Obviously trying to add a little bit of humor in our screencast to keep you guys awake. So I'll minimize this, and we're going to type in Barry N. Dead. Our employee ID is B. Dead. Next, we'll enter the employee's address information. You need an address line 1, city, state, and zip code. Again, I can find this information on our Add Employee checklist. So Barry lives at 111 Lane Avenue in Columbus, Ohio, 43215. Next, we'll enter the employee's phone information. All these fields are optional, and for the sake of time here on our screencast, we're just going to leave those blank. Next, we'll fill out the Other section. The Social Security number and hire date are required. Birth date is optional. Also, we'll choose male or female, full-time or part-time, and track hours by pay period or day in the radio button area. Male, full-time, and track by pay period are set as default. We'll go to our Add Employee checklist to get this information. So our Social Security number, we've got a bunch of 3s on here. Again, this is just generic data that I came up with. Our hire date, looks like he was hired on June 27th, 2013. Our birth date's optional, so we're going to leave that alone for now. He is a male, he's full-time, and we're going to track his hours by pay period. Next, we're going to enter the state retirement information. Notice all the fields, OPR's member date, OPNFPF member date, and OPNFPF hours base are optional. But if the employee is an OPR's member, you will not be able to process wages without an OPR's member date. Or if the employee is a member of OPNFPF, the same is true for the OPNFPF member date and OPNFPF hours base field. If you have questions on the OPNFPF hours base, you would want to contact them, as this number is defaulted into the OPNFPF contribution reports. Now I've created this data and I know that I want to add OPRs for this employee. If we go back to our Add Employee checklist, you'll see that on his withholding data, he is an OPR's employee. If we want to withhold OPRs, we have to have an OPR's member date recorded in the information area. So I'll go back to UAN. And we're going to say his OPR's member date was the same as his hire date. If you have questions on when the OPR's member date should be, you would want to contact OPRs. Next, click on the Tax Exemptions field. Both the Ohio IT4 and Federal W4 fields are required. If you have questions on either field, click the blue question marks next to the field. So for the Ohio IT4 form, the Form IT4 is the Employee's Withholding Exemption Certificate. It must be completed by all employees that work in the state of Ohio, except those employees that reside in Indiana, Kentucky, Michigan, Pennsylvania, or West Virginia. The Form IT4NR is the employee's statement of residency in a reciprocity state. Residents of reciprocity states above may claim exemption from withholding of Ohio income taxes by completing this form and filing it with their employer. For details, see the Form IT-4 or IT-4NR instructions, or contact the Ohio Department of Taxation. We also give you the source of the Ohio Department of Taxation and the website that you can visit. We'll also click the blue question mark for the federal W-4. The Form W-4 is the Employee's Withholding Allowance Certificate. To know how much federal tax to withhold from employees' wages, you should have a Form W-4 on file for each employee. A Form W-4 claiming full exemption from withholding is effective when it is filed with the employer and only for that calendar year. Generally, an employee may claim exemption from federal income tax withholding because he or she had no income tax liability last year and expects none this year. For more information, see the Form W-4 instructions or contact the IRS. We give you the source for the IRS Publication 15 Circular E and the website for the IRS. In our example, we're going to assume that we have the Ohio IT-4 and Federal W-4 forms in front of us. So Barry has given us his example here. This is the part of the form that the employee is going to give to you. We've obviously cut off some of the form. We just want to get the pertinent information here. So Barry's going to claim 2 exemptions on his Ohio IT-4 form, and he doesn't want any additional withholding per pay period under the agreement. So we're going to enter in 2 exemptions for his Ohio IT-4. For his federal W-4, we also have that on file. He's going to claim 2 exemptions here again, and he wants $25 additionally withheld for his federal withholdings. And we'll talk about that later on in the screencast. For now, we just know he's claiming 2 exemptions. On his W-4 rate, we need to know if he's married or single. Again, we can look at the form. He's checked the box for married. So we're going to check the radio button for the married rate. Next, if you have direct deposit payroll for this employee, enter the EFT information. If you do not have EFT enabled, disregard this section. Select EFT as authorized for EFT employees or uncheck to print warrants. Also check the pre-note was sent checkbox when the pre-note has successfully transferred to the bank. Routing number and account number fields are required when EFT is authorized. Then select whether the wages will be deposited in a checking account or a savings account. If you have questions on setting up EFT and UAN, please call the support line at 800-833-8261 or see the EFT section in the payroll manual. For this screencast, we're going to assume that we don't have EFT enabled, so we're going to disregard this section. When you click Next, UAN will display a system message saying that it has saved the employee. UAN will also display a system message reminding you to add Medicare for the employee. When you say OK, please note, state and local government employees hired or rehired after March 31st, 1986 are subject to a mandatory Medicare coverage. Be sure to add a Medicare withholding to this employee during Step 2. Refer to Section 210P of the Social Security Act. This is just a reminder message. You don't have to do anything with this message until you get to the withholding section. We'll say OK to the message, and we'll be directed back to the Add Employee Wizard welcome screen. A green check mark will be displayed for Step 1, indicating that we've completed this step. The blue arrow will indicate your next step, which is Step 2, to add employee withholdings. Instructions are provided at the top of the screen. UAN now allows you to attach a single withholding to multiple employee earnings. For example, an employee may have a single school tax withholding set up to be withheld from both his hourly earnings and his overtime earnings. Adding withholdings before adding any earnings will make the setup process easier. To continue, click the Next button below. If you add an item incorrectly, delete it after completing this wizard, or quit, delete the employee, then start over. When you're ready to proceed to adding employee withholdings, click the Next button on the Welcome Wizard screen to proceed to Step 2. Instructions are provided at the top of the main employee screen. Would you like to add any withholdings to this employee? Choose an option and click Next below. Note that federal and Ohio tax withholdings are applied automatically. You do not have to add them. If you have already added withholdings to this employee, they are listed below. Employee withholdings can be added or edited at any time, and payroll, maintenance, employees edit. Even though adding withholdings is an optional step, typically at least one other withholding will be added for new employees, which would be Medicare, although this may not be the case for all new employees. To add withholdings, click the Continue Adding Withholdings radio button and the Next button. If you click the I am done adding withholdings radio button, click the Next button, and the employee was hired with a date subsequent to March 31st, 1986, UAM will display a system message that explains why you need to add a Medicare withholding. It also asks if you would like to add a Medicare. So as we explained, the system message says this employee has a hire date subsequent to March 31st, 1986, but you did not attach an active Medicare withholding. State and local government employees hired or rehired after March 31st, 1986 are subject to mandatory Medicare coverage. Are you sure you do not want to attach an active Medicare now? You will be unable to post wages for this employee until you do so. To continue to the next step without an active Medicare, click Yes. This is not advised. To attach an active Medicare before continuing, click No, which is what we're going to do. If you click Yes, UAM will return you to the welcome screen and you can continue to Step 3, which is not advised if the employee was hired after March 31st, 1986, as you will not be able to process wages without an active Medicare withholding. We click No to continue adding withholdings by clicking the Continue Adding Withholdings radio button and then the Next button. The Add Employee Withholding form will open, displaying 3 sections and 2 buttons. They are the Employee section, the Withholding Status section, the Withholding section, the Details section, the Back button, the Next button, and the Quit button. Instructions are provided at the top of the screen. Enter the new withholdings information below. Available fields will vary according to withholding type. Note that withholding types are established in payroll, maintenance, withholdings. When you're finished, click the Next button below. To complete the withholding section, we're going to choose the withholding from the drop-down. If a withholding does not appear in the pick list, then you can establish the withholding type in payroll, maintenance, withholdings. We'll click the drop-down and we can see all of our available withholdings. I'm going to choose Medicare. The description field will populate with the description of the withholding established in withholding maintenance. However, if you wish to change the description, you can do so as long as it is unique. Each withholding must have a unique description. The details field will populate with the regular and fringe benefit percentages. Also, if the withholding is applied to overtimes, this box will be checked. I'm going to read the notes here on this screen as well. Please note, most withholdings do not calculate strictly on gross earnings. For example, local, school, and other taxes are reduced by cafeteria plans. Many factors can affect withholding calculations, so UAN may appear not to withhold exactly the percentages entered below. For details on that, you can click on the blue question mark. For the sake of time on our screencast, we're going to allow you to click that blue question mark if you have questions on that on your own time when you're adding employees. To complete the withholding status section, you're just going to choose active or inactive. The withholding will be active by default. If you want to deactivate the withholding, you just click the inactive radio button. Review your work. If everything is accurate, click the Next button. Next, select the appropriation account that you want to charge. Instructions are provided at the top of the screen. The withholding you are adding includes an employer share. Select the appropriation account to charge this employer share in the grid below. If you would like to charge multiple accounts, change the account split method. Refer to the UAN manual for more information about charging multiple accounts. To select the appropriation account, click the green drop-down and choose the appropriation account. If the account is not shown on the list, it is either not a viable account or hasn't been added or activated in appropriation account maintenance. See the appropriation account maintenance screencast for details on adding or activating appropriation accounts. If you're splitting the accounts by percentage, choose the accounts from the green drop-down and click directly in the percentage column to enter the percentage you want to take from each account. Remember that the total percentage must equal 100. If you're splitting the accounts by object, then select the object code from the smaller green drop-down, and the appropriation accounts field will be generated automatically on each particular wage based on the object codes of earnings. We're going to choose the object way of splitting accounts. I'm going to read the description of what the object code split does. So when object is selected, the employer share will be proportionally allocated to account codes formed by substituting the object code selected above into each account code used to pay the attached employee earnings. The accounts charged and the amounts allocated will be generated automatically on each particular wage. Our object code for Medicare is going to be the Medicare object, which is 213. We'll review our work, and if everything's accurate, we'll click the Next button. Then select the fringe benefit employer share if applicable. There's instructions provided at the top of the screen. The withholding you are adding includes a fringe benefit employer share, although its value may be 0. An appropriation account must be selected to charge for this fringe benefit employer share in the grid below. The selections made on the previous screen for the employer share have been copied here automatically. Edit the selections as necessary. When you're finished, click the Next button below. If you don't have fringe benefits, allow the software to duplicate your selection from the employer share. So we're just going to duplicate our selection that we chose, which is object split from 213, and click Next. Repeat these steps as needed to add all required withholdings for the employee. We're going to go back to our Add Employee checklist to see what other withholdings this employee needs. So here's our Medicare withholding with object split, which we've already completed. Our next withholding that he needs is a supplemental federal withholding, and the extra dollar amount we want to withhold is $25. So to add that withholding, we'll click the Continue Adding Withholdings radio button and click Next. We'll choose Federal Supplemental as our withholding type. The description again is going to default to what was added in Payroll Maintenance and Withholdings. Under the Details section, we do have an amount, and it's $25. Click the Next button, and we'll get a Skip Deductions tab. The Skip Deductions tab will default to deduct from every pay period. If you want to skip deductions for a pay period, select the Skip the Pay Periods marked below radio button. Next, select the frequency of the wages you want to skip. Then select the dates that you want to skip in the calendar menus. When a selection is made, the date will be highlighted. If you choose the wrong date, then click the date again, and it will be set back to be withheld on that date. You can also click Clear All to remove all skipped deductions. We're not going to skip any deductions for our supplemental federal, but we will skip a deduction later on in class for our health insurance. So for now, I'm just going to click Next. And as you can see, it adds our federal supplemental withholding at the top of the screen. Go back to my employee checklist. Looks like our next withholding we need is OPRS. So we have an OPRS regular employer share account. We're going to do an object split, and it's OPRS G for government. Click Continue Adding Withholdings, and then click the Next button. For our withholding, we're going to choose OPRS G, OPRS Government. The details section is going to automatically default with the employee share distribution. Click Next. Again, we're going to choose Object as our account split. And this time we're going to choose the object for OPRS, which is 211. Click the Next button. For our fringe account, we're going to allow the system to automatically choose what we chose for our employer account, and click Next. And as you can see, it adds OPRS to the top of our withholding listing. We'll go back to our Add Employee checklist. Our next withholding is health insurance, with an amount of $40 withheld from employees' wages. We're going to withhold that each pay period, and we are going to skip deductions. Minimize that again. I'll click Continue Adding Withholdings and click Next. Our withholding that we have established is Medical Mutual of Ohio. Our amount was $40. If you had a percentage, you would just choose the rate and then enter in a rate. We have a specific amount, which is $40, so we're going to leave it default there. I'll click the Next button. And we are going to skip deductions this time. So to skip the deductions, I'm going to select the Skip the Pay Periods marked below radio button. The frequency of pay is bi-weekly. And then in the calendar menus, we're going to select the dates that we want to skip. For health insurance, on the months where you get paid 3 times, I believe it's pretty common to skip a deduction in those months. So we're going to select all the months where we get paid 3 times. As you can see, it highlights in yellow. That lets us know that we want to skip on that date. It looks like we've got all of those months selected that we need. Actually, I've got one more here in November. We'll review our work, and if everything's accurate, we'll click the Next button. Review the withholdings listings that you've added, and cross-reference that to your employee checklist. There's our health insurance deduction. Doesn't look like we have any other deductions, so we're ready to move on to earnings. We'll click the I am done adding withholdings radio button and click Next. It'll take us back to the welcome screen. To continue, we'll click the Next button on step 3, which is Add Employee Earnings. Instructions are provided at the top of the main screen. Would you like to add any earnings to this employee? Choose an option and click the Next button below. Note that overtimes, non-cash benefits, and leaves cannot be added during this step. If you have already added earnings to this employee, they are listed below. Employee earnings can be added or edited at any time in Payroll, Maintenance, Employees, Edit. If you click the I am done adding earnings button, UAM will take you to step 4, and you will not be able to add earnings until you complete the employee wizard. To add earnings to the employee, click the Continue Adding Earnings radio button and click Next. The Add Employee Earnings form will open, displaying 5 sections and 3 buttons. They are the Employee section, the Earning Status section, the Position section, the Pay section, the Details section, the Back button, the Next button, and the Quit button. Instructions are provided at the top of the Add Employee Earnings screen. Enter the new earnings information below. Available fields will vary according to earning type. Note the earning types are established in Payroll, Maintenance, Earnings, and Leave. Frequencies are established in Payroll, Maintenance, Frequencies. Overtimes, non-cash benefits, and leaves will be added later. When you're finished, click the Next button below. To complete the Employee section. This section is read-only and includes the employee name and employee ID. If you notice the information is incorrect in this field, then it can't be changed. At this point, it's just best to quit, delete the employee, and add another employee with the correct name and ID. To complete the Earning Status section, you'll just choose Active or Inactive. The active status will be default. If you wish to deactivate the earning, you can just click the Inactive Radio button. To complete the Position section. If an employee's position is officially named by legislation or policy, then you should set up this employee with the designated position name. If no official title is given in legislation or policy, then you can determine how to label the position for payroll purposes. For example, if the cemetery sexton, zoning inspector, and road worker are one person, and he makes the same rate of per hour for all of these positions, there isn't a need in the payroll program to enter them as 3 different positions on 3 different earnings. You can name this employee's position something that describes all his work, such as cemetery, zoning, and road, or choose something generic, such as maintenance. With one position, you can have one earning for the rate of pay divided between 3 funds and account codes that pay the wages. If all of your laborers work in all of the departments such as cemetery, park, and roads, then you can name all of your laborers and all of their positions hourly workers or maintenance. The same decision could be made for someone that works in both water and sewer departments of a village. Don't overthink the position creating a new label for each type of work performed unless it's required by your local legislation or policies. To get our position name, we'll go back to our employee checklist, and our position is going to be cemetery for bury and dead. So we'll choose cemetery from the name drop-down under the position section. The position type we can choose from the green drop-down as well. This is just going to be other. Next, we'll choose the department from the green department drop-down. Each entity has to determine what departments they will use for payroll. The use of departments in payroll is to create a group of wages to process together. If employees work for several departments, such as cemetery and road, you would not want to set up a cemetery department and a road department because the employee then would have 2 earnings. You have created the departments to sort the employees into wage groups, so select the department that best describes the group. The list of departments you will see on the drop-down list are all the departments set up in the software. We'll go back to our employee worksheet, and our department is going to be cemetery. Next, choose the classification radio button as hired, elected, or appointed. We're going to say that Barry was hired. Next, you can choose to uncheck the unemployment eligible checkbox. The box is default checked for hired and appointed and unchecked for elected. If you check the box, then this employee will be reportable to ODJFS. Elected officials are not unemployment eligible. So we're going to leave this box checked. To complete the pay section, we're first going to choose the earning from the green earning drop-down. If an earning is not available, please add or activate the earning in payroll, maintenance, earnings, and leave. Once an earning is selected, the read-only type field will populate with the type of earning that was established in earning maintenance. Go back to our Add Employee checklist. His earning description is going to be hourly wages. The description field will populate with the description of the earning that was established in earnings maintenance. If you wish to change the description, it must have a unique description. Otherwise, UAM will display a system message when you try to proceed to the next step, describing that all earnings must have a unique description. Next, choose the frequency from the green frequency drop-down. If a frequency is not available, please add or activate the frequency in payroll, maintenance, and frequencies. We'll go back to our Add Employee checklist, and his frequency is marked as bi-weekly. Next, enter the pay rate as an amount per pay period for salary wages, amount per hour for hourly wages, or an amount per item for per item wages. We're going to go back to our employee checklist and we'll see that his hourly rate is $12 an hour. Also, you can choose to enter typical hours per pay period for hourly wages or typical items per pay period for per item wages in the optional typical hours field. This field is required for salary earnings when prorating leave. Only complete the typical hours box if an hourly employee works the same hours each pay period. If your employee will be paid from different accounts and the hours change every pay period, or even if you don't want a default hours to appear on the wage record, don't enter a number in typical hours. Leave it blank. To complete the details section, all the fields in the details section are marked optional. However, if an employee is a member of OP and FPF, and the OP and FPF pickup and frequency must be selected before wages can be paid to the employee. If you're not sure what belongs in this area, call OP and FPF for guidance. Fill in the other optional fields as needed for pay changes, termination or probation dates, or leave of absence. Review your work. If everything is correct, click the Next button. Next, select the appropriation account that you want to charge. If you're splitting earnings between multiple accounts, select the manual, percentage, or hours account split methods. Otherwise, leave the default setting as no split. To select the appropriation account, click the green drop-down and choose the appropriation account. If the account is not shown on the list, it is either not a viable account or hasn't been added or activated in appropriation account maintenance. See the appropriation account maintenance screencast for details on adding or activating appropriation accounts. If you choose the manual split method, hours or items must be entered manually on the time card for each pay period. You would typically choose the manual split option if the employee gets paid from 2 or more accounts and their hours vary from pay period to pay period. If you're splitting the accounts by percentage, select the accounts from the green drop-down and click directly in the percentage column to enter the percentage you want to take from each account. Remember that the total percentage must equal 100%. If you choose the hours split method, enter the number of hours you want to pay from each respective account in the hours column. You would typically use the hours split option if an employee gets paid from 2 or more accounts and the number of hours worked in each section is consistent from pay period to pay period. We're going to choose the percentage split method. And to find out the accounts that I want to charge, I'll go back to my Add Employee checklist. It looks like we're going to charge the general fund in our other salaries account line. And we're going to charge that 50%. Our other account we're going to charge is from cemetery for other salaries. So I'll choose that account from the drop down as well. And we're going to charge that account 50%. Review your work. If everything is accurate, click the Next button. Next, select the employee withholdings to deduct from the employee earning. This step is commonly skipped in error. You must attach the withholdings in order to add wages for the employee. Check the boxes next to the withholdings that will be withheld from wages. Ohio income tax and federal income tax withholdings will automatically be checked and withheld. There is no way to uncheck these boxes to remove them or make them inactive. If an employee is federal and state tax exempt, then their exemptions marked on the Information tab and wages earned will reflect no federal or state taxes withheld on wages automatically. If you click Next without attaching an active Medicare, you're going to get the system message that we read earlier. This employee is a hire date subsequent to March 31st, 1986, but you did not attach an active Medicare to the earning. State and local government employees hired or rehired after March 31st, 1986 are subject to mandatory Medicare coverage. Are you sure you do not want to attach an active Medicare now? You will not be able to post wages for this earning until you do so. To continue without attaching an active Medicare, click Yes. That's not advised. To attach an active Medicare withholding instead, click No, and then we'll check the box to attach Medicare. You'll receive a similar message if you fail to attach state retirement withholdings. So if I click Next without attaching OPRs, you'll see you get the system message. You did not attach an active retirement withholding to this earning. Are you sure you do not want to attach an active retirement now? You will not be able to post wages for the earning until you do so. To continue without attaching an active retirement, click Yes. To select an active retirement withholding instead, click No. So we'll click No, and we'll attach OPRs. We're also going to attach our supplemental federal withholding and our Medical Mutual of Ohio withholding. Review your work. If everything is accurate, click the Next button. Click to continue adding earnings and repeat these processes as needed for additional employee earnings. If you are finished adding earnings, click the I am done adding earnings radio button and the Next button to move on to step 4. I'll go back to my Add Employee checklist. It looks like I've added all the earnings that I need. The next thing we're going to do is overtime wages, which is step 4. So it looks like we're ready to move on. I'm going to click I am done adding earnings and click Next. Instructions are provided at the top of the welcome screen. Overtime earnings can be attached to any one of the hourly or salary employee earnings added previously. Note that overtime earnings can only be attached to an hourly or salary earning. To continue, click Next below. If you add an item incorrectly, delete it after completing this wizard, or quit, delete the employee, then start over. Click the Next button on the welcome screen. UAM will display the main employee screen. If you click the I am done adding overtimes button, UAM will take you to step 5, and you will not be able to add overtimes until you complete the employee wizard. To add overtimes to this employee, click the Continue Adding Overtimes radio button and click Next. The Add Employee Overtimes form will open, displaying the 5 sections and 3 buttons. They are the Employee section, the Overtime Status section, the Overtime section, the Pay section, the Details section, the Back button, the Next button, and the Quit button. The Employee section is read-only, and the overtime status will be marked active by default, as with the other steps. To complete the Overtime section, we'll select the overtime from the Overtime drop-down menu. If the overtime is not listed, then you can set up an overtime wage and payroll, maintenance, earnings, and leave. We're going to go back to our employee checklist, scroll down to our overtime earning, and our earning description is overtime wages. The description field will populate with the description of the overtime that was established in earnings maintenance. If you wish to change the description, it must have a unique description. Otherwise, UAM will display a system message when you try to proceed to the next step, describing that all overtimes must have a unique description. To complete the Pay section, we're going to type in the base rate for the overtime wage. Understand that this is the base rate, not the overtime rate. UAM will calculate the overtime rate automatically based upon the overtime rate that is entered in the Details section. So our base rate is basically our hourly rate per hour, which is $12. Next, type in the typical hours per pay period if necessary. This is an optional field. If overtime varies each pay, enter 0 typical hours. To complete the Details section, we're going to enter the overtime rate. This is the amount of hours times the base rate. For example, you could have time and a half, double time. So we're going to go back to our employee checklist. Our overtime rate is going to be time and a half. So we're going to leave it as default as 1.5. Review your work. If everything is accurate, click the Next button. To complete the earnings section, click the radio button to attach the overtime wages to an earning. Select the earning that matches the withholdings to be applied. Click the Next button when the proper earning is attached. complete the appropriation accounts section, the overtime accounts will populate based upon the accounts chosen for the regular earnings. Also, the account split method will be selected based upon the regular earnings. However, if the account split method is percentage or hours, you will still need to confirm the percentage or hours for overtime in the respective percentage and hours columns. As you can see, these are the same accounts that we charged. We'll just verify that those accounts are the same thing that matches on our employee checklist. Looks like everything is correct. And again, we're going to split that 50% to each account. So we've reviewed our work and we're ready to click Next. Click to continue adding overtimes and repeat these processes as needed for additional employee overtimes. If you're finished adding overtimes, click the I am done adding overtimes radio button and the Next button to move on to step 5. Instructions are provided at the top of the welcome screen. Non-cash benefits can be attached to any one of the taxable employee earnings added previously: hourly, salary, per item, tax item, or taxable non-retirement earnings. To continue, click Next below. If you add an item incorrectly, delete it after completing this wizard, or quit, delete the employee, then start over. Click the Next button on the welcome screen. UAM will display the main employee screen. If you click the I am done adding non-cash button, UAM will take you to step 6. You will not be able to add non-cash benefits until you complete the employee wizard. To add non-cash benefits to the employee, click the Continue Adding Non-Cash radio button and click Next. The Add Employee Non-Cash form will open, displaying 5 sections and 3 buttons. They are the Employee section, the Non-Cash Status section, the Non-Cash section, the Pay section, the Earnings section, the Back button, the Next button, and the Quit button. Instructions are provided at the top of the screen. Enter the new non-cash benefits information below. Available fields will vary according to earning type. Note the earning types are established in payroll, maintenance, earnings, and leave. Then select the earning added previously that this non-cash benefit should be attached to. Any withholdings applied to that earning will be automatically applied to this non-cash benefit. The Employee section is read-only, and the non-cash status will be marked active by default. If you want to make the non-cash inactive, just select the inactive radio button. Back to our new employee checklist. Here's our non-cash benefit earning description. Classification is a non-cash benefit. We also have our hourly rate here in the account codes. So we'll go back to UAN. So we're just going to select our non-cash benefit. The type field is read-only. Also, the description field will populate with the description of the non-cash benefit that was established in earnings maintenance. If you wish to change the description, it must have a unique description. Otherwise, UAM will display a system message when you try to proceed to the next step, describing that all non-cash benefits must have a unique description. To complete the pay section, we'll enter the pay rate per pay period. Please note the pay rate entered will default into every wage added for the earning attached to the non-cash benefit. If the non-cash benefit varied for each pay, or it is not included in every pay, enter 0 in the pay rate field. So we are just going to leave it at 0 because it is going to vary for each pay. We do have to enter a 0 in the field though. To complete the earnings section, we'll click the radio button to attach the non-cash benefit to an earning. If you do not attach the non-cash benefit to an earning, it will not show up on the wage. Review your work. If everything is accurate, click the Next button. Click the Continue Adding Non-Cash and repeat these processes as needed for additional employee non-cash benefits. If you're finished adding non-cash benefits, click the I am done adding non-cash radio button and the Next button to move on to step 6. We are finished, so I'm going to click I am done adding non-cash and next. This will take you back to the welcome screen, and we're on step 6, add employee leaves. Instructions are provided at the top of the welcome screen. Leaves can be attached to any one or more of the hourly or salary employee earnings added previously. Attaching a leave to multiple earnings allows the leave to be earned or used when paying any of those earnings. Note that leaves can only be attached to hourly or salary earnings. To continue, click the Next button below. If you add an item incorrectly, delete it after completing this wizard, or quit, delete the employee, then start over. I'm going to click Next on the welcome screen. UAM will display the main employee screen. If you click the I am done adding leaves button, UAM will end the Add Employee wizard, and you will have to edit the employee in order to add leaves to the employee. To add leaves to the employee, click the Continue Adding Leaves radio button and click Next. The Add Employee Leave form will open, displaying 5 sections and 3 buttons. They are the Employee section, the Leave Status section, the Leave section, the Pay section, the Details section, the Back button, the Next button, and the Quit button. Instructions are provided at the top of the screen. Enter the new leaves information below. Available fields will vary according to leave type. Note that earning types are established in payroll, maintenance, earnings, and leave. When you are finished, click the Next button below. The Employee section is read-only, and the leave status will be marked active by default. If you wish to make the leave inactive, click the Inactive radio button. Back to our employee checklist. Here's the leave section. So it looks like Barry's got a comp time. It's paid when used, credited manually. The comp time rate is time and a half. Using this rate will accrue all prorated leaves, and we don't have any maximum annual accrual or maximum leave balance. We're also just going to leave the beginning balance at 0. We'll go back into UAN. To complete the leave section, we'll choose the leave from the drop-down. If the leave is not listed, you can activate or add a leave in Payroll, Maintenance, Earnings, and Leave. The first leave we're going to add is comp time. The type field is read-only. Also, the description field will populate with the description of the leave that was established in Earnings Maintenance. If you wish to change the description, it must have a unique description. Otherwise, UAM will display a system message when you try to proceed to the next step, describing that all leaves must have a unique description. To complete the Pay section, we'll select the radio button to decide whether the leave is paid when used or not paid when used, which will be salaried. Hourly employee leave will be marked paid when used. This means the hourly employee receives paid leave that takes the place of hours he or she would have worked. If you have salaried employees that have leave, it is important to mark it not paid when used. If you mark this incorrectly, a salaried person will be overpaid when you enter leave hours on the wage. Barry is an hourly employee, so we're going to leave him as paid when used. Next, select the pay rate per hour for the leave, which is just his hourly rate, $12 an hour. Completing the Details section. Different leave types will have different options in the Details section. Comp time and holiday leave will have the option to be credited manually. Personal, vacation, sick, and other leave may be credited manually, earned per pay period, or earned per regular hours worked. Also, if you are adding comp time leave, then a comp time accrual rate must be entered. This field will only appear when adding comp time and is default at 1 times comp time hours worked. We're going to change that to time and a half, which is 1.5. All leaves will have the checkbox to include the leave in regular hours, but this option is only relevant to prorated leaves. All leaves will have the option to enter a maximum leave balance and maximum annual accrual. If you choose the radio button for either option, enter the number of hours in the respective fields to set limits. Also, a beginning balance can be entered for the leave. The leave balances can be adjusted at any time in Payroll, Utilities, Leave Adjustment Utility. So if you don't enter a beginning balance here, you can always adjust it at a later date. Review your work. If everything is accurate, click the Next button. To complete the earnings section, we'll click the checkbox to attach the leave to one or more earnings. So we're going to click the checkbox to attach it to hourly wages. Also, we need to click the WH radio button to attach the leave to the attached earnings. The WH attachment will create the list of withholdings that will be applied when the leave is paid. If you fail to select the WH earning, the leave will not appear on the wage. Review your work. If everything is accurate, click the Next button. To complete the appropriation accounts section, the leave accounts will populate based upon the accounts chosen for regular earnings. Also, the account split method will be selected based upon the regular earnings. However, if the account split method is percentage, you will still need to confirm the percentage for the leave in the percentage column. It is going to be 50% for each account, so we can leave that. Review your work. If everything is accurate, click the Next button. Click the Continue Adding Leaves and repeat these processes as needed for additional employee leaves. If you are finished adding leaves, click the I am done adding leaves radio button and the Next button. We're going to continue adding leaves. We're going to add one more leave, which is sick leave. We'll confirm by going back to our checklist. Here's the sick leave, paid when used at $12 an hour. Leave earned, 3.5 hours per pay period. Using this leave accrues all prorated leaves. No maximum leave balance or maximum annual accrual, and we're not going to have a beginning balance. So we'll go back into UAN. So I'll choose sick leave from our drop down. We're going to have paid when used, and our pay rate is still $12 an hour. And we're going to accrue this leave, and it's going to be earned per pay period. And he's going to earn 3.5 hours per pay period. Again, you can add a maximum leave balance and a maximum annual accrual, and you can also enter in your beginning balance. Review your work, and if everything's accurate, click the Next button. We need to attach the earning, which is hourly wages, and also click the radio button for WH to attach the withholding earnings. We'll go ahead and click Next. And again, our accounts are split the same way, 50% to each account based upon the earnings in regular hours. I'll click Next when I'm finished. If you are finished adding leaves, click the I am done adding leaves radio button and the Next button. UAN will display a message at the top of the screen in the instructions area that you have finished adding your new employee. To close the wizard, click the Finish button. You will receive a system message to display the General Information Report for the new employee. This report is helpful for verifying employee setup accuracy. Click Yes to view the report, or click No to go back to the employee's maintenance area without viewing the report. It is recommended to view the report, so we're going to click Yes. Here's the Employee General Information Report. I'm going to zoom in so we can see a little better. Try to make this a little bit bigger for you. As you can see, this has all the general information that we've just entered in for this employee. Please review this report before finalizing the employee in the system. If you need to edit anything, changes can be made to the employee at any time in Payroll Maintenance Employees Edit, and you can choose the guided or advanced method. The key points you will want to remember for adding employees are: printing the General Information Report upon completion of the Add Employee wizard is recommended so you can view the entire employee setup. If you find errors in the setup, you will have to edit the employee record to make corrections. Edit employee instructions are included in areas of the payroll training manual. To edit the employee, as you can see, Barry's listed in our active employees. We can click on his name and edit, and we can choose guided or advanced. All withholdings, overtimes, non-cash benefits, and leaves must be attached to earnings, or you will have trouble correctly adding wages for the employee. See the payroll training manual for tips on how to attach certain items. Verify all earnings, overtimes, non-cash benefits, withholdings, and leaves are charged to the correct accounts. This screencast was designed to show you the correct way to add an employee. You may encounter system messages that were not shown in the screencast that indicate errors or impending errors that may result from adding the employee information incorrectly. Please read the system messages carefully and consult UAN support with questions before you add the employee incorrectly to avoid future errors that could result in more severe payroll complications. Thank you for using this screencast on adding employees in UAN. For further information, you may contact the UAN support line at 800-833-8261 or by email at uan_support@auditor.state.oh.us.